No one told me how hard motherhood would be in the first year. Between that and all of the loss I experienced in my 20s, I was bound for failure. There's no way. There's no way. What I would tell my younger self in my 20s, if I had to go back to my 20s, I'm in my 30s now, so if I had to go back to my 20s, I would tell myself that there is light on the other side. There is going to be times when you're going to be struggling. You're not going to understand. Things are not going to make sense. You're not going to have this clear picture of what your life is going to look like. Nothing went exactly how I thought it would go. Nothing went how my plan was. I had a plan for how I wanted things to go, or I should say I had goals for where I wanted things to go. I did not have a plan. I just had manifestation. I would just tell myself, oh, when I'm 30 years old, I want to make sure I have a PhD. I want to make sure I have this. I want to have that. I want to have all these things. But I never worked towards creating a plan that I would work on with action steps for what that would actually look like. And because I never did that, I was getting lost very, very quickly. So when I experienced loss in my life in my 20s, it was extremely devastating and I didn't know how to handle it, how to cope with it. I realized really quickly that I needed coping skills. Not having coping skills is something I didn't have in my teen years or in my 20s, and I learned it very quickly because I needed to have that. Because emotionally dumping on other people in your 20s, that's not cool. That's not cool. In your 30s, 40s, it's just not something that you should be doing to anyone. And my expectation of what motherhood would look like was completely different in my 20s versus now that I am a single mom in my 30s. In my 20s, I was married and I was able to raise my children together with my spouse at the time. And now that I'm a single mom, I have a clear vision for where I want to be with myself, with my children, where we're going to go as a family, where things are going to look down the line. It just feels so much better. I feel so empowered. Things are so much more different than I would have ever envisioned them to be for myself. And I want to say to those that are in their 20s, that are looking at this video and you're wondering, are things going to get better? Will I be able to ever make a plan for myself? Will my goals ever be achieved? And I'm here to tell you that yes, it will happen. However, there's a caveat. What you have to do is make actionable steps for yourself. If you just tell yourself, I want to be a millionaire, but you never do anything on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on even a monthly basis to work towards that goal, it's not going to happen. And that's how goals work. If you do not make actionable steps to achieve your goal, it's not going to happen. I needed to develop that confidence building in myself. I needed to no longer have those insecurities that I had in my 20s. So my idea of changing all of those things had to deal with the way I perceived myself, the way I wanted people to perceive me, and dealing with all of those things, all those layers, all that yucky stuff on the inside that you just have to tear apart through therapy or through journaling or through some self-reflection or through coping skills. There's a lot of different ways that I was able to learn different skills, different techniques of staying grounded so that I no longer felt as though I was sinking and drowning into a horrible, thin, lonely, sad place. I did not like that feeling. I got to a point where I was tired of being sick and tired. Have you ever gotten to a point where you're so tired of feeling exhausted, angry, frustrated, anxious, and depressed all the time that you decide, I'm going to do something for myself. I can't take this anymore. Something's got to change. I got to that point in my 20s, my late 20s, and I thought it was too late. I really honestly thought it was too late by then. And I can tell myself now in my 20s, I wish that there were certain things I realized when I was in my early 20s versus my later 20s, but still, I did realize it at some point, and that's all that matters. Because once I came to that realization, I was able to change things in my own perspective and the way I saw the world and the way everything was being internalized for myself, if that makes any sense. No longer did I have those feelings of inadequacy in my 20s. It took years, I'm telling you, years of being grounded. And what do I mean by these grounding techniques? What are some grounding techniques that you could possibly use? I remember in my 20s, I would sit with my feelings of anxiety. I had to train myself to sit with those feelings and to not act on things because I wanted to just get a reaction out of something or to just react. I would respond to it instead. I remember sitting with my 5 senses, and I would concentrate on what I would see in the room, what smelled in the room, and good smells, bad smells, whatever the smell was in the room, whatever I would see in the room, texture of things, different taste, all those 5 senses, what I would be hearing. I focused on my 5 senses whenever I wanted to stay grounded. And I can tell you honestly that it does work to stay grounded, to stay in the present moment if you're trying to get rid of any negative feelings that you are having. It's a great technique to use if you want to try it. There's also little sensory bins that you can create for yourself. That's something that I did too. Got a little old shoebox, and I would put things inside of it that were different sensory items to stay grounded with touch. That was one thing that I was able to stay grounded with touch. And you can always take a little couple things out of that box and put it into your purse if you want to have a couple items to help you stay grounded with touch if you're focusing on the other sensories. Finally, I feel like an adult woman. I know it sounds silly. It is what it is because I'm in my 30s now. However, I finally feel like an adult, and it took me so long to finally feel like an adult, which is crazy because I remember feeling like people would tell me that I was an adult when I was in my 20s, but I didn't feel that confidence. I felt so insecure. I didn't feel as though there was something that was making me who I was and who I wanted to be. So it felt like an imposter syndrome type thing. I felt like I was living someone else's life, and there was this whole nother reality that I was supposed to be in, but this was the life that I was in currently, and I was trying to experience that life, and it never felt home to me. My 20s never felt like home. And now that I'm in my 30s, I have this confidence level that I never had before, and I am hoping that whoever's watching this video, if this is you, it is possible. You too can feel this confidence level. You too can get rid of the insecurities that you were having in your 20s, or even in your 30s or your 40s, however old you are and you're watching this video. You can get rid of those feelings, and you can become a better, greater version of yourself than you have ever believed you could be. And it's all about mindset. You got to change the way you think first. That's what I had to do. It took me years of this, changing the way I think, one step at a time. It's not going to happen overnight. A lot can change in a year, but it's not going to happen in a year either. It might take you a couple of years, and it might take you reading self-help books, going to therapy, talking to someone, becoming part of a community circle, getting more connected with your roots and your culture and who you are as an individual, all of your dimensions of wellness, physical, social, emotional, intellectual dimensions of wellness, and really getting into the nitty-gritty of who you are, what makes you unique. I had to find what makes Cynthia unique. And it works. It works. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of journaling, but it totally works. And I definitely think it's worth the effort. It's always worth the effort to work on yourself. And that's how I perceive this. When it's worth the effort to work on yourself, you can have a clear vision for yourself. I started to develop a clear vision when I was about 33 years old. I started to have a very clear vision of what I wanted to do with my life, with my children's lives, where we're going as a family. And when you have a clear vision, when you know exactly where you're headed, when you know exactly what you need to do, there is nothing, I'm telling you, nothing can get in your way. Nothing can distract you once you know exactly where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. Someone could come to you and say, hey, you need to go and do this, this, and this, or this doesn't look like this is something you need to be doing. But you're like, you know what? I know what my vision is. I'm going to stay on my path and mind my business. And I suggest you do the same, because when someone comes at you and they tell you things like that, they obviously want to see you going a different direction. And you should not follow what someone else says if you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Staying focused is the main priority. I swear by staying present in the moment. I honestly do. And I believe that this is something that was just on my heart. I felt really exhausted and I wanted to film this video really quickly. And I wanted to just share that when you feel completely lost, when you feel like there's nothing left, that you can't do anything about your situation, that you can't do anything about your job, about your income, about your education level, about your status, about your credit, your finances, whatever it might be, there's certain things that are going to be out of control. There's things in my life that are out of control as well. However, when I look at things, it's all about your perception. The way you see things changes your whole outcome of your entire life. And if you can grasp that concept, then you're going to be okay. You will make it through. You will.